Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Straight Up With Steph. Have you ever worked in a practice, or whether you're a dentist or hygienist or assistant, and there's some funny business going on with the coding or the billing? I know I was at a practice for longer. Me personally, I've experienced that. Luckily, not a lot, but there was this one particular practice, and man, they were just doing some shady stuff over and over. For example, they would bill out for one surface fillings when they actually place sealants. They were a practice that placed a lot of mini implants. And guys, whenever I would take a pano on these poor patients, those implants were just all over. There was like 20 of them all over the place. And they were also being billed incorrectly just to generate revenue for the practice. And I know that's an outlier, right? Most of us, most practices are really trying to do the best for their patients and make sure that they're doing everything legally and not committing fraud. But the fact of the matter is, fraud does happen. And it happens to people who may or may not know that they're committing fraud. So that's what we're talking about today is red flags that insurance companies are looking at, the most common instances of fraud, and what we really need to do to learn about things, learn the codes, make sure that we're not committing fraud because none of us want to be audited by an insurance company. Today, my guest is Dr. Paul. He was a general dentist for about 30 years. He's done a ton of lecturing at Tufts University and Harvard, and now he's a consultant to help dentists stay out of jail. And he has got some crazy stories for you today. I loved our conversation because he gave us like multiple stories of instances of fraud that he's seen, and he's got some great advice for us to prevent it ourselves. We joked around today that learning the stuff like insurance codes and fraud isn't necessarily the sexiest thing, but it's super important for us to learn because it doesn't matter how great the work is that we do. It doesn't matter how awesome our practice is. If we get in trouble for fraud, the consequences for that are pretty steep. No matter what position you hold in the practice, we all have our role to play to make sure that things are being done correctly. So I hope you really enjoy today's conversation with Dr. Paul. Hey, it's Steph, and welcome to the Straight Up with Steph podcast, where we have real discussions around health and life and just trying to be better at both. Hello, Dr. Paul. Thank you so much for joining today.
Well, so thank you for having me. This should be a lot of fun. First time we've
Yeah,
met. I know we've spoken once, but I'm sure this will be delightful.
I'm just really excited to talk about this because I know that a lot of people are like concerned about fraud that especially own dental practices. So before we get into all of that, just tell us a little bit about your role with insurance companies because I know that you help them identify fraud, right? And look at claims.
Well, it's kind of a multiple, so you kind of prepped me for this question, so I was thinking about how to answer it. And it's kind of twofold. One, I was the dental director of an insurance company for 5.5 years, and I did about 175,000 claims and all their appeals and
Oh, wow.
we had a couple of part-time consultants and oversaw all of that. On the other end of it, I have the founding of one PPO, which it'll have to go unnamed for, NDA purposes.
Yeah.
With a partner at the time, when they founded a PPO, we were hired as the consultants on how to develop all of that and how to teach their consultants to look for fraud. And since then, perhaps the biggest thing I've done when it comes to fraud with insurance companies is approximately 2 years ago, for about 7 months, I was hired as a consultant by an artificial intelligence company who was selling their services to insurance companies. And the idea was to develop algorithms to get you, who should we suspect? And they picked me. And I know nothing about AI. I know nothing about all they wanted to do is what would I be suspect of and why and how. They had the mathematicians to do all of that. And I said, why pick me? And they said, because we wanted to try to emulate your brain, because I can look at statistics from a practice and now we could talk about it as we go along. And I'll know, even if you do 10 of them a year, which is nothing, the way you build it one way versus another will make me suspect your practice. And let's look at everything.
Okay. Okay. So crowns, for example, if you're billing
Well, there's
differently than that
statistics
kind
for
of.
how many crowns per how many restorations, as an example.
Okay.
Every
Okay.
company has their own stats, and then most of the companies now are hiring these artificial intelligence companies also and buying their software, and they're kind of and it's getting tougher and tougher and tougher on the docs. And Medicaid and Delta Dental are the worst by far. I've done, so much negotiating, and where docs have been hit with biggest fines I've seen is 16 million, and
Holy cow.
plus prison sentences, and met docs for the first time at hand irons and leg irons, and so I could go. You'll find out some of the stuff as we go along today, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. So you have seen dentists in
Uh,
jail for this.
well, I haven't visited them.
Well, you know what I mean. But
Oh yeah, I've had clients go to jail, sure,
so
for less
what,
time than they were going to because I helped. But
oh, okay. What are the most common types of fraud that you're seeing?
I don't know if you remember the movie The Usual Suspects with Kevin Spacey a long
Yeah.
time ago.
Y yes. Yeah.
Well, the
Kaiser Sose, right?
Kaiser Soze is exactly right.
Okay.
There's certain codes that we always look for in the industry. Do you want me to tell you those? I'd be happy to.
Yes, I do.
Well, the number one on the hit parade today, and the biggest ones I've seen, I'm working on a case now, Delta Dental wanted over $500,000. And the biggest code is 4341. It is,
Really?
oh my God. You don't know what's right. I promise you, you don't. And neither does almost anybody in the country. And you don't know how the insurance companies look at it. And you don't know how you're being tracked. And you don't know why. Just as an example, I can tell you now, I've had a number of discussions with the former head of MetLife, and he had told me that any claim they get, the patient is 30 or under for the code 4341, they immediately consider the doctor fraudulent until proven otherwise. It's an automatic.
Even if that, like, X-rays and
It
everything
doesn't
support
matter
it?
because you don't. I mean, I'd have to spend a whole hour in perio with you to teach you this,
Oh,
but I'd be glad to.
okay.
I'll make it real quick if you want.
Yeah.
Specifically, you have to have, on average, it depends on the company because they're all different. On average, at least 2 millimeters of a horizontal bone loss, at least 5, 6 millimeter Parker depth, at least 5 millimeters of lost attachment. Otherwise, as far as they're concerned, they're not paying for it.
So it's an age thing though. So if someone's
No,
30
it's
year
not an
old
age
is
thing, but
30,
you're not going to see too many people at 30, 35 years old that have that kind of bone loss. You know that. You're a hygienist.
yeah, right. But I'm just thinking like if we submit 4341 for someone who's 30 versus someone who's 60, like the 30-year-old is more likely to trigger a flag,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. 100%.
What about like restorations? Are there like on I just think
Oh,
of
yeah. Well, the
onlays. I
number one on
remember
the hit parade, and that code is going
are
to
they?
change
Okay.
in 2026, by the way, is 2391 single surface posterior composites. Because if you haven't gone into dent and you haven't done it, and that was part of the descriptor. And when you build, you have to follow the exact descriptor of the CDT of that particular year. And if you
Mm.
don't, they'll get you, depending upon how you fall into statistics. What people don't realize is nobody's looking at your x-rays for 2391s. Half the companies, when you send in for Crown, nobody looks at it, they just pay it. You think they are because you send in the x-rays and the photos and X and Y and Z. They don't look at it. Then they'll look a couple of years later at the statistics. And they'll say, wow, this guy or lady does a lot of crowns. Let's do an audit. Now they'll go back and say,
Mm.
oh, gee, they really, by our criteria and our provider manual, we don't pay for that. We'll give us all the money back for all the crowns we paid for the last 5 years.
God, that's scary. That like freaks
That's
me
what I
out. Getting
do.
audited or whatever freaks
Oh,
me out.
I mean, I look, I joke. I always started my lectures, but now I do them on Zoom. I did them live flew 150,000 miles a year for 15, 20 years. I always started it with, I have lived the dark side. I am the dark side. In other words, I see the other side. Stuff that, you're going to have listeners listening to this. Oh, I'm the best. I would never. Yes, you all commit fraud. 100% of you just don't know it because
So and
nobody ever taught you.
that's another question is I mean there's outright fraud, right? When people are just like being
There's
shady,
outright
but
fraud when you're just flat out billing for something you never did. But there's two ways of
yeah.
looking at that. There's billing for 43. I'll use the 4341 as an example again.
Okay.
And it was really a 4342 because it was 1 to 3 teeth per quadrant and 4 more teeth per
Mhm.
quadrant. So you build the 4341. That's fraud.
Hmm. What are some other ways that clinicians like hygienists or dentists are maybe committing fraud and they don't realize that they are?
Uh, a lot of it is what we call, there's a legal term. I'm not a lawyer, but God knows I've spent enough time with lawyers, probably hundreds of them
I bet.
at this time. There's a term that is called reckless disregard. And everybody should remember this. Reckless disregard means you didn't know it was fraud, but you should have known.
Hmm.
It's on you. Why didn't you learn it? Because dental schools aren't going to teach you. Hygiene schools aren't going to teach you.
Right.
Dental assisting schools aren't going to teach you. The only one that's going to teach you is somebody like me when they come to my lectures. Or they get grabbed and now it's time to learn.
So is there something that you see over and over and over again that people are committing fraud and they're just like, oh my God, I had no idea
Yeah.
that they were making that mistake? Like x-rays or is there anything that keeps coming
Well, the
up?
definition of x-rays is an example. They changed the definition a couple of years ago, and it's every tooth in the mouth and all the edentulous areas, including the apices, and you must gain the entire tooth.
Hmm.
I'm doing audits of records right now. I haven't found one set of FMX that gets everything. They're all useless as far as billing for it, because you bill for a full mouth and you haven't done it.
So if I am doing an FMX as a hygienist and I miss the apex of 17, God forbid, I don't know, send that in as a FMX, that could potentially be denied because I didn't get that
That would be
apex.
correct. I know companies will ask you for the money back for the x-rays.
Really? What about, so this is something, Dr. Paul, that's always confused me is when offices, there's a new patient that comes in, the office takes a set of bite wings and does a pano and bills that as an FMX. To me, that's not an FMX. So is
Well, you
that
are
kosher or
absolutely
not?
right. I had a phone call maybe a couple of years ago from a dentist who got hit with the Maryland State Dental Board with wanted her license for doing that. And she
Really?
wanted, and I know the best lawyers in the country. And I knew a group that was in DC, which also goes into Maryland. I said, I'll refer you to them and let's hopefully they can, yeah, but it's fine because there were different codes for that. So you're right. They're wrong. It happens all the time in this country. You know that.
Yeah. But I'm like,
And
people
it's
must
fine.
not be getting in trouble for it.
Everything I'm telling you is all fine. Everything I will tell you for the rest of the hour. It's use the analogy of the metaphor. You're driving 100 miles an hour on the highway. You didn't get caught. You didn't do anything wrong.
Hmm.
There's a little
Hmm.
red bubble behind you. You got caught. What's another big one?
Okay.
What's another big one? Forget the codes for a moment. This would take a full hour to discuss. Giving discounts. That's a federal crime. It's against every state dental board regulation.
Like, give me an example of a discount.
If somebody, I don't know how many different practices you've worked in. I know the big one you worked in for a long time. They owe me $20 for cleaning or filling of that. Write it off. Or it's my next door neighbor, charge them half. And you put the full fee for the car because you always have to put your full fee on the claim form to the insurance company. But let's call it $1,000. Told you I'd wave my hands around. That thousand
Yeah, no, it's all right.
$1,000. And you know what? Party the next door neighbor, known each other forever. The insurance is paying $500. Yes, forget the $500. It's enough. Takes care of my lab fees. That's gross fraud.
Mm.
That's gross fraud. You have associates in the practice. Do you know how many times I've seen a third, maybe I could make them up my own percentage, at least what I see, where the billing is done. Who did the work on the claim form? It'll go to the owner. It'll go on there. Why? Because he's credentialed. That's absolute. A dentist went to jail for 18 months in Tennessee for doing that.
That's crazy. So
I
if
could go
someone,
on and on and on.
I bet,
At
yeah.
everything you do in the practice, I can get you.
Well, I'm just wondering, like, say I'm a dentist and I build something and it was fraudulent and I wasn't aware. I mean, should I be scared that I'm going to go to jail or am I just going to get a slap on the wrist? And I would imagine it takes a lot to send someone to jail.
That all depends on how much money is involved
Okay.
and also what kind of a jerk you are.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
I'm telling you the truth, and how good your attorney is. I mean, the odds of going to jail are very slim. You
Yeah.
have to be either very egregious. The ones I know that have gone to jail that I've worked with are about as dumb as you could possibly be.
Yeah. I,
Or,
I would assume that goes hand in hand, like not super
I mean,
smart.
I don't know if you want me to tell you a couple of stories. I will.
I'd love to hear some. Yeah.
Okay. There's a couple that stand to mind right now. And one was a dentist from Mexico, and he got grabbed. when he came across the border one time in the El Paso area. I forget, I
Hmm.
think it's Juarez across the border. That's Juarez. And he got grabbed because he was doing the dentistry in America as we're coming across the border because it's cheaper in Mexico. And
Yeah.
there's a little bridge you can walk right over. And he was mailing the claims out of an address in El Paso to get the U.S. fees instead of the Mexican fees. Now,
Okay.
he was he would do it every time he came to visit his girlfriend. He left his wife home. True story. Anyways, they wanted to give him 5 years in jail, and this was the one time I actually had to go to court. I had a partner at the time. My partner did the testifying, and the insurance company said he owed $300,000. And he had an uncle, a very rich uncle. He said, "I'll write him a check, let him out of jail. He'll never come back to the United States, and all is good." And they had plea bargained to that. So I'm in the court, and okay, that's great. Guys, he stands, and the federal judge said she wanted him to allocute. You know what an allocution is? Yes, I did it.
Uh-uh.
Listen, you've
Uh,
seen it on TV. Yes, I plead bargain, but you have to allocute. Yes, I did kill that person, and da 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 da.
okay.
And what?
Just admitting.
He's admitting it. Okay, so he gets up and he said, "I really didn't do anything wrong." The judge got so damn mad. She goes, "Bam, 6 months. Put in jail."
Wow.
Now
So
this is,
the money and 6 months in jail?
yeah. I don't know if they
And could he
double
keep
paid
his
or not. I
license?
really don't know. But that's the point. He never would have gone to jail if he kept his mouth shut or just said,
Yeah.
"I did it, and let me go back to Mexico." And
It's that ego, man.
and then another one. This was a dentist in Maryland. It's not that long ago, maybe just before COVID, a couple of years before COVID. He got hit for Medicaid fraud. They wanted $5.5 million. The sentencing was going to be upwards of 165 years in jail, and his entire staff was also arrested. And
So this was probably going on a long time,
oh
right?
yeah,
I mean, that's a lot of
what he
money.
was doing was using the code incorrectly. Mostly, he was a thief.
Okay.
I mean, he got to know what he did. In other words, Medicaid, you can go to a nursing home, but you can only charge once a day for the visit. But when he saw 30 or 40 patients, this is part of it. Okay, he would bill the code for visiting the nursing home for each one of those patients. The government can be bad, but they can eventually figure that out,
Yeah.
which they did. So, anyways, I found him a lawyer, and then he went bankrupt, and I had court-appointed attorneys, and he couldn't pay me anymore, and I gave up on him. And then I get a call from his court-appointed attorney, I don't know, some months later. We have a plea bargain. 6 months, 3 months in a little federal farm, 3 months with one of those ankle bracelets. Everybody else that pleaded guilty, they got slapped on the wrist, and nothing happened to them, including his associate doctors. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay, and that's it. And he doesn't have to pay any money because he's bankrupt. He said, but he won't take the deal. I said, was he crazy? Well, he says he has a 14-year-old daughter, and he doesn't want his daughter to ever see him go to jail, so he wants to take his chance in court. Well,
Hmm.
you know what? I forgot about it at that point. I had better things to do with my life. Off I went, and maybe a few years later, I made a call. Well, actually, no, I looked him up online. I didn't make a call. And I said, whatever happened to this guy? Did 8 years in prison.
8 years.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I
Jeez.
can go on and on and on.
I'm sure. Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, what's one case that's really stuck in your head that's really
Well,
surprised
those
you? And
two
you just gave,
certainly stick in my head,
yeah.
a lot. And there's a third one, actually. It was out in San Francisco, or just outside of San Francisco. I got a call from a lawyer. This guy got grabbed, and I've actually done 3 cases like this, that he was doing all kinds of dentistry which was unnecessary. So you asked me something else that sticks out of my mind. I've done 3 or 4 cases that I've been involved with that the dentistry was completely unnecessary. So he was doing endos, posts, and crowns on virgin teeth.
Oh man.
But why was he doing it? Because they were UPS, and the particular contract they had there, they paid the dentist full fee, and he didn't. So I'm the patient. I open my mouth. This will be $1,000 or $2,000, but you don't have to pay anything, Paul. Am I going to question my dentist?
Hmm.
And then he had this full report from the Chamber of Department, University of Southern Cal Dental School, London. He wanted me to review the report and see if there could be any defense, because they wanted to take his license.
Yeah.
So he sent me the full report, sent me this stuff. I called the lawyer. I said, and send me a check. I don't work without getting paid up front anymore because the guy couldn't pay me anymore. and I did some work
Okay.
and never got paid from. So I've done a lot of cases since, and everybody knows me. You know, I take a full retainer before I even look at anything. So at the end of the day, insurance companies were right. He was dead wrong. And I said to the lawyer, he's lucky he's not going to jail, let alone lose his license.
Yeah.
And I forgot about it. 5 years later, when I was into looking up stuff like the one I told you before, I said, whatever ever happened
Hmm.
to him? He was in the newspaper and everything else. I won't tell you his name, but you could look him up. But I don't think it's fair. So he's had enough aggravation in life, I suppose. The reality of it is he did 5 years in jail.
So those are big consequences. I mean, that's out. That to me is like, okay, it's justified. These guys sound like
Well, yeah,
jerks,
that's
and
what
they're like clearly.
I mean, if you have time, I'll tell you another one.
Sure.
Do you have time? I mean, I don't know how,
Yeah, yeah,
I've
yeah.
only
No,
done one other podcast like this, so I don't know how much time you have.
yeah, no, we're good.
I got a call from a dentist in Chicago, and he was being audited by the CEO of Blue Cross Blue Shield Dental and the chief dental consultant were coming to his office. So I go in there and I said, "What are they auditing you for?" Well, crowns 6 through 11. He did multiplicity of them for one particular company. I said, "Well, let me look at the X-rays. They were all virgin teeth, and this company paid full fee up to $10,000 lifetime. That was their insurance. So every time they walked in, 6 through 11, they do endo, got a percher point up there, put a post up there and cut the tooth and do the crowns." And I said to him, first of all, you have patient scheduled the rest of the day. So I said, do you a favor, cancel them for the day. You paid me, you paid my flight, you paid my hotel, and you paid me up front. You pay me to tell you what to do. So we
Hmm.
did. I said, just close the door in case anybody's around, because your office manager is still out there working. And I called him every four-letter word that you could ever think of, which I won't do online, okay?
Yeah,
And I said, you are, and you know what, I called them everything. And I said, you're
yeah,
paying me to tell you this. I said, this is battery on people. You're committing
right.
violence on people. I said, you are lucky if you don't go to jail. Oh, I don't want to throw me out of Blue Cross Blue Shield. What do I do? I said, when they come to the office, get on your knees and learn how to beg, because
Mm.
I have no idea and I don't want to know. There's nothing I can do to help you.
In that situation, did he see that he was doing anything wrong? Or was he like, I don't see the problem with this?
That's a hard question for me to answer, and I don't want to get anybody upset by listening to me. But you told me I could be who I am.
Yeah,
But
please.
I won't. It's pretty well known in the industry. When I say industry, people that are dental directors of whether it's insurance, or that especially foreign-born dentists who come here and get retrained and get their licenses, they have a different ethic and a different mindset. It's not 100% true like the guy in San Francisco was not. He was born and bred American, okay? But we see more of it with folks that were not born here. They have a different attitude towards things. And
Mm.
sometimes we're unfortunately a little bit more suspicious because of that.
Interesting. Okay. So it's like the training, is it more a
Yeah, well, they have to
mentality or
come
the
to the
training
States
isn't
and
the
get 2
same?
years of training minimum under the international program to get licensed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and how they were brought up, in their societies they were brought up in. That's my
Yeah.
best guess without being a psychiatrist or any other kind of specialist.
Well, I mean, you've been doing this a long time,
Long
so
time.
you've seen patterns, right?
Oh, we knew if you saw certain kinds of last names in Bronx or Brooklyn, and for dentists, we knew we'd be more suspicious of them because we know what they're
Interesting.
like, and then we know where they came from.
Okay. Well, those, I mean, you've given us examples of like outright fraud, but I'm more concerned about people like that are mistakenly doing this and they keep doing it and they don't realize that they're doing anything wrong. So, like what do we need to do in dental practices to make sure that we're not committing fraud? Are there courses that we need to be taking every year?
Well, the only way I can tell you that, of course, take all the courses you possibly can.
Mhm.
But to the best of my knowledge, which is not limited, but to the best of my knowledge, I'm probably, well, there's a couple of other people out there giving courses, probably hygienists and stuff like that. At this stage right now in the United States, I may be the only one giving these kinds of courses. But I give a series of 6 courses through a company called INR now.
Mhm.
INR, and if anybody ever wants to email me, or you can look them, it's INR seminars, and I do it 3 times a year, where
Okay.
and it covers fraud, perio, provider manuals, which are so important. Which I think you want to even ask me about that at some time.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
And everything I talk about is all covered in this series of 6. So it gives you a
Oh,
really good background on what I'm talking about.
well, and I'll make sure to put links to INR in the show notes as well as your email. I've personally have taken a lot of courses through INR and I really enjoy it, so I'm sure it's a great series.
Well, I don't know how great it is, but I think people seem to like it. And
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that. Go ahead. Next question.
Have you with hygienists, I'm just curious, I'm a hygienist,
I know you
and
are.
we've got more and more hygienists who are, owning their own practice and doing their own thing. So have you seen hygienists
No,
get in trouble
no,
for fraud?
no. But again, to let your audience know, you sort of prepped me for this a little bit. I didn't know everything you were going to ask me, but there's something I wanted to talk to you or your audience about this, if there are any hygienists listening, which I suspect a lot are. Okay.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Okay. I figured that. Okay. I won't tell you the part of the country I was in, but I had a partner for 5 years who was the dental director of 2 other companies right now. At one time, he was the dental director of United Concordia. So we were hired by a dentist in a state because they got audited and for various reasons. And we looked at everything and we found that they had a very high level of scaling and root planings, 4341. And we looked at the records and they didn't justify it at all, as far as we
Mm.
were concerned. A lot, not every one of them, but a lot of them. Okay. And the way the hygienist was paid was on commission, which I am, as my partner was, completely dead set against, because it's too much of an incentive to, if they're working for the dentist, which most are, okay, to basically go overboard when it really isn't called for by the code, in which I described earlier in this podcast. And a matter of fact, it was so bad, and the dentist, and this is unfortunate, most dentists don't have a clue. They let the hygienist run the perio department.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
know that, okay? I know that. So when it was lunchtime, we told the dentist what we saw, and we knew how we paid her because he or she, I can't even remember anymore, but because they had told us. So we told them, we had decided, listen, we're going out for lunch. It was 12 o'clock. When we come back at 1, if you haven't fired her, we're going to turn around and come back and leave. We'll give you the money back. And they
Hmm.
fired her.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So she was doing SRPs on people clearly that didn't
Now,
need
did
it.
she know she was doing wrong? I don't know.
Hmm.
Because it's what I explained to you in the first place about 2 million and how the companies look at it and stuff like that.
So is that something that could maybe be a red flag, is if you've got a big office that and a lot of SRPs are being
Absolutely,
diagnosed, does that
100%.
make them
Oh, yeah, of course.
hmm.
And
Okay.
what's even a bigger flag is you hardly ever see a 4342. You see a lot of
Okay.
4341, but we know that's not the case. And they're
Do
just,
you have it where 4341 is billed and then like you're like, no, clear, this is localized if anything, and then they change the code
well,
and then
oh,
that's
sure. And I
okay?
used to do that
Okay.
all the time.
Okay.
They'd bill a 4341 and I'd say, no, only teeth, you know, uh, 11, 12, and 13 or whatever. And the rest of
Mhm.
them, no. So we'll pay you for the 4342. But I also, right beside my desk, had a list of these docs and I watch all their claims
Okay.
because you make the bad list.
Right. Yeah, and then
And
you start watching them
every
like a hawk.
company has a bad list. Trust me.
Do you ever get off the bad list?
The answer is most companies after a year. Typically, if companies start to get asked for x-rays for all their fillings, which happens,
Mhm.
if that happens, you've been audited, they're looking at your stuff, it's automatic. And when you start to send everything in as they've asked, and the company's paying for everything once that you've sent it in, I tell my audience, because I've had this question asked to me 1,000 times, if not one, okay, I say have the doc, not anybody but the doctor, get on the phone, ask to speak to the dental consultant and say, listen, I know you had flagged me. I understand the reason why. You can tell because you paid all the claims now that we got it right. We know what we're doing. Can I get off them? Because it's expensive to be sending out the x-rays and takes more time and
Mhm.
everything. And
Yeah.
typically they'll say yes or no, you got to wait the year. Depends on the company. They all do things differently.
Okay. I was at an office and it was a big practice. There was like 6 or 7 hygienists, I think. And then all of a sudden, all of our SRP claims were getting denied, just like one after the other. And I was just like, something's going on here. Like we obviously pissed someone off.
It's not pissing people off. It's somebody decided to look and said, remember I told you a lot of times they never look?
Yeah.
Now they
Yeah.
picked up and looked and said, holy cow, we've been paying for this for 5 years. This is garbage. No way.
Yeah.
Give us
And that's the
give us
scary thing to
$100,000 back.
right, exactly. It's not just that one claim. They
Oh,
start to
no,
look at
no, because they can go
everything
back
from
five
the
years.
past.
Medicaid even shorter than that.
Oh my God, that's crazy. What about progress or not progress, chart notes? Like if we don't sign the chart note, is that a
I
huge
can
deal or
show
not?
you state laws that say if you didn't sign the chart note, you never did the work.
Hmm. Yep, I know. I remember in school, they're like documentation is everything.
Oh, that's what I'm in the middle of now, teaching how to document in this particular practice. People have asked me for years to write a book on documentation because I've been doing this a
Mm,
long time, as you said. And I said, you know what? Every doc practices differently. And I just, I don't have the intestinal fortitude or really do I want to do it. But to add to it, and I'll give everybody a piece of advice. Everybody that practices dentistry in this country should own an oral camera, and there should be one in every room. And when you're prepping a tooth, before, during, after, somebody comes in, were they a 4355, were they a 4346? If you have hygienists listening, they know when gross debridement, one is basically an overgrown cleaning. Uh,
yeah.
that kind of stuff. And by the way, I found that 4346 is hardly ever used. And it certainly fits the bill in a lot of situations where you can do your full exam. And then I used to joke about it because I used to have some pediatric practices that would come to my lectures when I was
Hmm.
out on the road lecturing. And when the code came out, I put it up on the screen and go through how you should look at it and bill it and what your documentation should say and everything that goes with it. They're ready to take a nap because a pediatric practice. And I said,
Yeah.
and I would say before I started the 4346, all you pediatric practices, stay awake. And this is why. Do you have any autistic kids? Do you have any Downs kids? Do you have any kids that are in bands? This is the way their gums look. And because I
Mm.
show pictures, and I said, so, and Guardian, in many of their plans, as an example, pays 25%. They're still in the preventive section of the insurance, but they'll pay 25% higher fee than they would for an 1110, which is the pro fee.
Interesting. I was going to ask you because that's a relatively newer code.
Well, it's not so new
And
now.
I
It's been out
wonder,
a while.
well, compared to the other ones, I guess.
Yeah,
But I just wonder if people aren't using it or they don't understand
they
it
don't understand
or
it. They don't
okay.
understand it. And they can actually, if they can't hear me, because if they hear me, I do a full 2 hour program on perio, and they'll certainly get a lot
Okay.
of it. Okay. The ADA, if you look up online, ADA 4346, there'll be a whole paper on it with questions and answers and pictures and when to. It's very, very helpful. Very, very
Mm,
helpful. You can find that
okay.
online.
Well, I'm glad that they came out. Do you know when they came out with that code?
If I were to guess, at least 5, 6 years ago.
Yeah, I was gonna guess like 5 years.
Yeah,
But
five,
I was
six
like,
years ago.
thank God when
The
they came out
biggest
with that.
change in coding in this country happened in 2005 when they had a gigantic change in codes and all kinds of stuff. And then since then, they have a code committee and they meet. And any dentist in the country, and I suspect any hygienist, but I'm not sure, but any dentist in the country can send in a code if their idea of a new code, and it'll be voted upon by a committee at the ADA. They have
Mm.
national meeting every year in Chicago for 2 days.
So what about codes too? Do you recommend people take courses every year on that? Because those are complicated, especially when they start
The
changing.
answer is that to take course on codes. I never taught all the codes. I taught 15 to 20 of them because those are the ones that the usual suspects, are the
Yeah, the
ones
red
that
flaggy ones.
the red flag ones and a few others that I'd get into that I thought were important. Yeah, the ADA gives courses every year. I know that.
Hmm.
They're a little dry, but they're helpful. And they go through the
Yeah.
new codes and how you should bill. So I would recommend it for sure. Other than that,
Okay.
I don't know anybody. Thanks.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned dry. Like I'm a hygienist, but I also have an ergonomics business and it's like that and OSHA and coding and stuff. It's not the sexiest things, but those are the things that will literally make or break your practice. So they're important.
Oh, yeah, then you said sexiest thing. I said, oh, I could say something else then. Uh, I just remembered another case. Remember the ones I told you about that did, had endos, posts, and crowns that needed to know? I remember one other one.
Yeah.
My partner and I were lecturing in a city to go unnamed. And at the end of the lecture, a gal like you came up. She was the office manager. They had 7 dentists in the practice, 10,000
Oh
square foot,
wow.
gorgeous facility. And they said, one of our dentists, we think that everybody gets paid on the basis of what they did, is doing onlays and crowns and root canals on teeth that are virgin teeth. But he's a partner in the practice. And
Hmm.
he's leaving the practice, moving down, and non-compete, he doesn't care it, and he wants all his records, and we don't want to pay him anything, and we want to enforce the non-compete. What he had done, he had divorced his wife, married his hygienist, and paid her his salary, and he took so he could pay less child support by bringing in less money. He was a real
Oh, good
piece of.
grief.
And I saw his picture of it. They had all the doctors' pictures on the wall. And I said, he's not that handsome because I understand he had 5 different affairs in the office. And he's out hunting this week. He won't be in the office. Could you come in and audit the office and then report to the dentists that all own on Sunday? And they'll bring in the 2 attorneys that are going to represent them.
Oh
And this is
wow.
an absolute true story. So they were right, and he was doing all these shenanigans. So we met with the attorneys, and they said, what should we do? Because in the state of, and I won't give you the name of the state, there's a rule for your dental license. If you suspect another dentist of fraud, about 20 states have this, you must report it to the state dental board. So
Hmm.
they'd be reporting themselves because it was the same tax ID number.
Oh.
And the lawyers said, well, what do we do? So my partner and I looked at him and said, only thing we can do is, what's the statute of limitations? Pay him, get him out, put a zipper on, the statute of limitations, then you can go back to sleep because you ain't going to have a lot of sleepless nights. And that's
Yeah.
and that's what they did.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
You
That's
get,
bad.
I mean, I hate to say it, but this job could almost be, it's not a job, it's a hobby I get paid for. And I have to tell you, to be all honest, if anybody ever calls me, I'm not cheap. A lot of lawyers tell me I charge more than they do an hour. And I say it's easy because I'm the only one doing it. So I can I can do what I want.
Right, and when people need you, they need you.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's sad.
Yeah. Well,
So,
you mentioned earlier about practice was it practice manuals
oh
that are
yeah.
really important?
Yeah, provider manuals they're called.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay. Some of them you can get online, but most of them you have to be participate with the plan to get it. And how they today, Delta especially was what I've found in the last 5-7 years, that they'll have rules in their provider manual. You can only crown a tooth if 2 cusps are missing and at least 4 surfaces are involved. And if 1 cusp is missing and you crown the tooth, you violated their provider manual. You've signed a contract to play by the rules of their provider manual. Give us the money back for all the crowns that have only 1 cusp missing.
I'm sorry. Like, how are people supposed to stay on top of
Well,
all of
very
that,
simple.
especially when they have
Read their
multiple
provider
plans?
manuals, and they don't do it. And that's exactly right. You put your hands up like that. And they don't do it. And so I try to, at my clients, get them to read it. At the end of the day, I'm the guy that's got to read it. I know how to read it to make it go a lot quicker. And I sort of know what to look for.
Yeah.
Sort of. I do know what to look for. And I tell every dentist I can get my hands on, read every provider manual if you are a participating provider. If you're not a participating provider, you don't care about that particular issue. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Because you did
Okay.
it. The patient was willing to pay for it and you fulfilled every requirement of the ADA code for it, you're good to go. Okay. But if you participate and you don't fulfill it, provider requirements in their provider manual, and you're absolutely right. Nobody ever reads them.
Well, what if I'm a dentist and I've got Delta Dental over here and then I've got MetLife over here? Could they potentially have different rules? And I have to
They all
remember
do.
that
Yeah,
as
they do
I'm,
have different rules.
ugh. Sorry, it's just that's a lot.
It's crazy. The whole system is crazy.
It
And
is crazy.
but it's driven by money. And I mean, that's too complicated to go into now. And I'm telling you exactly the truth. I swear. Anybody that ever knows me, they know I tell them I never lied because I don't have to. I can just tell you the truth.
Mhm.
I'm completely transparent.
Well, I really feel for dentists and practice owners because they've got a lot to deal with. And then this, I've worked for practices that they're taking 10 different insurances. And so what? They just have to look at 10 different ways that the insurance wants them to
Yeah,
bill
some of
and
them are rather typical. And then
okay.
I mean, the ones that you really have to look at are your perio, uh,
Mhm.
scaling in root planings, or another major fraudulent code, one of fraudulent codes is 7210, which is surgical extraction. The
I was gonna
difference.
ask about
Well, go
extractions.
ahead, ask, and then I'll answer it for you.
Well, yeah, I mean, is that something that you see when people
Oh,
bill
all
it
the
as surgical
time.
and it's
And,
not?
and then, but unfortunately, on the other end of it, you see docs billing for regular extractions 7140, and they really were surgical, but they have in their
Oh.
minds, gee, yeah, I didn't do a flap, so it can't be a surgical extraction. They changed that.
Oh,
They changed that definition in 2005, and a flap is not required. The tooth has to be either sectioned or split and or a flap, but the flap is not required anymore. But then there are statistics,
interesting.
how many surgical extractions versus regular, to get my attention. I've seen one, I'm looking at one now with a client where they've only did 10 extractions, but of the 10, 6 was surgical. I'm looking at that guy and saying, I better take another look at that dog now. What else are they doing that maybe is wrong? They don't understand the codes. Why didn't they build the way they provided me? Let's go get them.
Hmm. Do you, in your position, do you ever feel conflicted? Like you're,
No,
you were at,
till up until probably 10 or 15 years ago, I probably did. I'll be put
okay.
blunt. I still do occasionally because, listen, I meet an awful lot of very nice dentists and hygienists. They're really sweet
Yeah.
people. And the typical, when I explain to them what they've been doing wrong and nobody's ever told them before, they have nothing but the patient's best interest at heart.
Yeah.
And I know that. And I feel sorry for them, especially the ones that get hit for a lot of money. They're never going to go to
Because
jail.
they just didn't know.
They just didn't know.
Yeah. God, that's tough. So, what do you like? What's the one thing that you wish all dental practices would know when it comes to preventing fraud?
Well, I've certainly given you, I guess the best way of putting it is I think it should, now that's not going to help. I was going to say every dentist, every dental school in the country should teach what I teach.
Yeah.
And actually, there's been, I think, 5 dental schools that have hired me and they've let me lecture to all their students. And matter of
Hmm.
fact, one of the dental schools, and again, I won't tell you the name, I'm a mentor for one of their students. They said they didn't have time for me to come into the school, nor did they want to pay my fee. So, could you, we can't do it. So I said to the gal, the female dental student, if you can get all the seniors together and everybody pay me $50, I'll do a Zoom program for all the kids in your class. It's a
Hmm.
6-hour program, and I'll teach them everything. So when they graduate, at least they had a heads up, and
Yeah.
they'll be way ahead of the game in life because there's a lot of ways of making money that are perfectly legal that nobody's ever taught them, and
Hmm.
they just don't use the codes properly, and they say, well, the insurance never pays for it, so I'm wrong answer. Delta, as a matter of fact, they have a requirement nationally. You must bill for everything you do.
Hmm.
And,
So when we're talking about fraud, is it only a concern for dentists or people who are contracted with that insurance company? Or is
no,
it like,
no, no. In other words, you're saying if you don't participate with a PPO,
mhm,
the answer is there have been a number of cases where docs have been non-participating and gotten grabbed. Now, do you have to turn your record? See, if you are a participating dentist, you must turn the records over to the insurance company. It's part of HIPAA. It's right in the HIPAA law that you must do that. Okay.
okay.
But if you're non-participating, no, you can't have my patient records or other patients' records to see if they compare if I'm doing the same thing for everybody. And you will when they come in with a court order, and that's what they do, and a search
Have
warrant.
you seen dentists get in big trouble that maybe are like strictly fee for service? Like they're not participating with any insurance company?
I'll be honest with you, the answer is yes, but I can't recall it right now. I know it's
Okay.
happened. I know I've been involved, but I can't recall. I've been seen cases where The FBI at 12, 14 years ago came into my office, took out all the computers in the office, and I had to go up there for 5 days, and it was a lot of fun.
I would imagine, I mean, if they're not billing to insurance, the only way they could really get in trouble is if someone reports them, right? Like a patient
Yeah, that happens
or
way
an
more than you
employee.
think. I've been at parties and people ask me questions, friends and acquaintances that know what I do. Hey, is this fraud? My dentist did this, my dentist did that. Yeah, the answer is I used to get complaints as the dental chief. And when I did,
Hmm.
I had to look at it. And it came from a patient.
Yeah. Over the years, I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I'm seeing a new patient and they've gotten, and I try to be very careful with how I talk to patients
It,
about their previous care because I never want to
yeah,
throw anyone under the bus. But,
it's a big problem.
put two and two together, it's just like, you probably
Why
didn't
didn't
need
my
that
dentist tell
treatment.
me this before kind of thing, as that you're taking out
Yeah.
all the teeth and making a denture. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've seen implants placed just
Well,
terribly, and
that
it's
must
just
be
like, "Okay, how do
yes.
I word this?" Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
but
no.
yeah, I would imagine it's up to that patient, right? And they could go back
Actually, my,
and
my son, who I don't know if you've taken one of his lectures yet in INR, actually,
Eric?
yeah,
I have, yeah, I've
yeah,
taken a
he's
few.
doing it. He does a lot of malpractice cases also. And he's doing a case
Okay.
just like that, where the implants were placed wrong. And it's great. It's a big case.
It's crazy. I was at this practice, oh my God. I was there for about 10 months, which was like 9 months too long, but they did mini implants. And I would look at the panos and these short little things were just
Unbelievable.
all over the place in the patient's jaw. And I'm just like, oh my God, what are you doing? Like they were doing some seriously messed up stuff at that practice. I had to leave after a while.
Well, what can I say? I mean, listen, they can only look at so many people. And sometimes I think people should be punished a lot harder than they are. And other times I
Really.
think they shouldn't be punished at all. Just a little
Mhm.
slap in the hand. Did you learn your lesson? Don't do it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I choose to believe most people are not trying to get one over on the
Well,
insurance
you're right.
companies.
You,
They're
you,
making honest
you're
mistakes.
right. You're right. And
Yeah.
actually, I talked about 2391 in the single surface posterior composite.
Hmm.
2026, they changed the definition of the code. Actually, it's a major, major change in that you don't have to go indenting anymore.
Huh.
And they took away the code 1252, which is the code where it's more than a sealant, but not a filling yet. You're still in enamel.
Yeah.
That's going to go away.
Okay. That's the PRR, right?
Exactly.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's in 2026?
Yep. January 1.
Okay.
So I,
Okay.
I get the codes 6 months before you would. So
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I mean, people maybe now should brush up on their
yeah, but
codes and just,
today, if you did a 2391 until December 31, you got to go in debt.
hmm. It's just crazy how a slight little change in verbiage
Oh,
like can
sometimes
change
one
everything.
word
Yeah.
can change what the code really means.
Wow. Wow. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Paul. And if people want to reach out to you, contact you, learn more about you, what's the best place for that?
Well, I can call my cell phone or text it first would be nice because I'm going to think you're spam. So if you text it, I'll
Okay.
look at it. And it's 508-380-1046. And my email is Paul Bourne, Paul, Paul, Paul Bourne, at Mad River, MADRIVER.com.
Okay. So I'll make sure to thank you so much for sharing that, especially your cell phone number. I'll make sure to put all of that in the show notes as well as the link to INR because I love that organization. And like I said, the classes that they offer, I've just had nothing but good experiences with them.
Oh, great. So, are we done?
Yep. We're all done. Thank you so much,
Oh,
Dr.
it's my
Paul. And thank you
pleasure.
everyone for
You're wonderful.
listening.
I hope I helped somebody today.
Oh, I'm sure you did. Thank you everyone for listening. We will see you next time. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Straight Up with Steph and being interested in living better. What many listeners do is subscribe to the podcast because that allows them to automatically get the latest episodes of the show. Remember, you are the best person to take care of you, and by learning what we talk about on this show, you're taking one more step to being a healthier and happier you. I'll talk to you soon.